Hey guys, the fundamentals of Civ 3 are simple, but some mechanics are complex. There are ways I can break them down for you, but a lot of these breakdowns take about a minute or two, so the end result is that it feels like I've explained each of these things, sometimes well, sometimes poorly, a dozen times throughout all my streams and videos, and I'm sick of doing that, so I'm going to put all of them here so I don't have to explain this stuff again. If the topic comes up, I'll just link to this video. Item number one is popping. Let's break it down. There are two types of popping. You can pop cities and you can pop settlers. The two different types of popping have different situations where you are eligible or ineligible. Here they are on screen right now. You can have a look. So when I say that there's a minimum distance away, there's a complicated complicated formula. I'll show you guys the formula itself. If you want to translate to German, it's this one right here. X represents an axis that's like northeast, southwest, and the other one is northwest, southeast, if that makes sense to you. If that doesn't make sense to you, well, I just have this image right here. So, sorry for the potato quality. If your city is here, then you can pop if there's a hut anywhere in the plains section, but if the hut is in the desert section, then if you pop that, you cannot get a city. It is too close to your city. But pay attention to the lists I showed you, because, for example, you notice that the distance restriction only applies to popping cities. It does not apply to popping settlers. You can pop settlers within the desert region here. The inverse is true of the restriction where you can't have a settler active or in construction. Additionally, I should say with the barbs, you cannot get barbs when you have 0 military units. Your king, if you're playing regicide, counts as a military unit, and you cannot get barbs if you plant a city directly next to a hut. So on high levels, where goody huts are landmines of potential barbarians, these are ways to disarm those landmines. Okay, point number two is culture flips. The formula will appear on screen right now, and I'll link it in the description of this video. It is super complicated, but there's some important things to know. Two very important components to the chance to flip are number of foreign tiles in your BFC. BFC is Big Fat Cross, and number of foreign citizens. Resistors count as 2 foreign citizens. If there are no foreign tiles in your city's Big Fat Cross, and that city has no foreign citizens, without exception, the city cannot flip. These two numbers, which are pretty much interchangeable, are the base from which all the other multipliers are applied. From there, add in the rest. The distance to capital ratio is not one you can control, but it's good for eyeballing how likely a city is to flip. This, foreign tiles in BFC and foreign citizens, are how I quickly identify which cities of mine are likely to flip. Global culture ratio is another factor. It caps out at 4 times, and at high difficulty levels, you won't even be close to a quarter of the enemy's culture. So it's a factor that's marginal at best to chase after, if not totally useless. Note that if a city flips, you lose any troops you had in it, and the effect of an individual unit is a marginal subtractive one. So in cities that are very likely to flip, stationing units is a bad idea, but in cities where there's like a small chance of flipping where it'd be disastrous if they did flip, I like to keep 5 or 6 units in there, and that will cut out the chance of flipping entirely. Only if the chance of flipping to begin with was very small. Another important factor, getting culture in the at-risk city doesn't actually do much. This one's really counterintuitive, and it's probably the best piece of advice from this section, but yeah, getting that 10 culture mark does give you the first border expand, which usually helps cut down in foreign tiles in your BFC, but not always. And beyond that, the only relevant local measure is, do you have as much or more culture in the city than the AI ever had in the same city? In most cases, the answer to that will be yes, obviously I was the one who planted the city, or no, and if I reached that milestone, it's because I solved this flipping problem ages ago. So in border cities that you've actually planted, your own culture in that city is actually pretty much irrelevant as far as I can tell, except to the extent that it contests tiles in your BFC, and the extremely marginal effect that that one border city has on your empire-wide global culture score. So yeah, this might be disheartening info for you. I'm offering a lot of information that will help you predict flips, but not a lot of information that will help you play around them and stop them. And that's just how it is. Cities that you take will get flipped. Border cities will get flipped at high difficulty levels when the global culture ratio is pretty bad, and that's just how the game plays out. Crucially, though, disorder pretty much doubles the chance of a flip. That's the one thing you do have the most control of in recently captured cities. Pay attention to it. You can also starve a city out to reduce foreign citizens. It's hard to get rid of the last citizen, but just decreasing the number of foreign citizens helps a lot. In case you're wondering, taking cities off the AI does not take that city's culture off the AI's global culture score, as far as I can tell. I know for 100k culture it doesn't work that way, so I assume it doesn't work that way for global culture ratio too. And my gameplay experience has backed that up. But killing a civ entirely helps a ton, as their foreign citizens are no longer an issue, because you can't flip to a civ that doesn't exist. Raising cities and replanting cities is pretty much the go-to way to eliminate the issue of foreign citizens. And note that a city cannot flip the turn you capture it, so when you do capture a city, park your doom stack inside there for a turn. If your stack is big enough, you'll put down all the resistors, since resistors increase the odds of a flip, doing that will help a lot. Number 3 on our list is maximum tech time. This one drives me up the wall, because despite the quirk to it, it's really intuitive to me, but absolutely not to anyone else. So let me explain this. When you research, you get beakers. You complete the research on the tech when one of two things happens. A, when you get the required number of beakers for the tech, or B, when you've been teching for 50 turns. That's all there is to it. I really don't know why this and the implications of it are so hard for people to understand, but I can definitely break it down for you a little bit more. When I say get the required number of beakers for the tech, imagine a box. When you get 300 beakers or whatever you need, you get the tech. Be aware the number required for a given tech is not constant. It depends on a lot of things, like the size of the map and how many of your rivals have unlocked the tech. When I say you've been teching for 50 turns, I mean that for 50 turns, at least one new beaker has entered the box, likely through the science slider, even if it's 10%, or maybe a specialist. So let's say you're at the start of the game. It says writing in 50 turns. Whether you have the slider at 100% or at 20%, that means that at 100% speed, it will take more than 50 turns to fill the box at your current rate. That's the key phrase here, at your current rate. If you can get more beakers per turn later by increasing your total commerce in your empire, and can fill the box before turn 50, then yes, it does matter what your sliders are at right now even when it's not showing it. You will get the tech in less than 50 turns. The game just doesn't know that yet because your income is low, but of course, as you expand at the start of the game, it will get bigger. Now, of course, you might prefer just having the gold if you'd rather run the tech slider at 10 or 20% and get the gold from doing minimum or maximum tech time. But please don't comment on my videos being like, oh, Suede, you're wasting your gold by teching. If I'm not playing Deity or Sid, I'd rather finish writing in 39 turns, even though it says 50, it's going to finish in 39, or whatever it's going to be, and get better trades, along with a chance of winning philosophy. On lower difficulty levels, that's the way I feel. But the important thing is, yes, I do get it in less than 50 turns. Number 4 is corruption. Now, I cannot explain to you the entirety of Civ 3's corruption system to you, but let's get a few points down. The first is rank versus distance corruption. Distance corruption means how far the city is from your capital, full stop. Rank corruption means the more cities you have, the more corrupt they are, but this corruption is assigned in order based on how far away the city is from your capital. So both are based on distance from your capital, but one is based on absolute distance, and the other is based on distance relative to your other cities. So in this example, Hilo is very far in absolute terms, like in terms of how many tiles away it is from San Francisco. It is pretty far, but the distance corruption is quite high, but the rank corruption is quite low, because there are not a lot of American cities between San Francisco and Hilo. It is the 7th closest city to what is the capital in this scenario. So the rank corruption is pretty low for Hilo. Note that the maximum level of corruption a city can be at is 90% corrupt. The Forbidden Palace more or less reduces 3 things: distance corruption. Calculations are done from the Forbidden Palace city for distance corruption, or your cap, whichever is closest. It also reduces global corruption marginally, and it has a big effect on corruption in the city where it is built. It does not reduce rank corruption in nearby cities. The only effect on nearby cities is the reduction in distance corruption. So in big empires where your cities are corrupt beyond the 90% cap just from rank corruption alone, reducing the distance corruption actually does fuck all. You'll still be over the cap just from rank corruption, so you'll still be 90% corrupt. And in most conventional games of Civ 3, unless you have weird archipelago maps, typically this is the case, that your faraway cities, the ones that are super corrupt, are mostly corrupt from ranked corruption and not from distance corruption. So this would be a counterexample, would be the World War II in the Pacific scenario. Like I said, America doesn't have a lot of cities between San Francisco because it's all water here. So in this case, having the distance corruption computed from Manila, which is the Forbidden Palace city in this scenario, instead of from San Francisco is absolutely massive because distance corruption in Manila is quite big. But rank corruption isn't that bad because it's like Apari is like what, the 12th or 14th closest city to the cap. So it's not too bad in rank corruption, but the distance corruption is massive. So in this case, having the Forbidden Palace city, it has a big regional effect. But typically, the effect from the Forbidden Palace, it's got a global effect, and it's got this effect in the city itself is the biggest thing. So your highest priority when you're choosing a spot to build the Forbidden Palace is what is a city that is quite corrupt. You don't want it to be too corrupt to build it, but you want it to be as corrupt as possible to get the most out of it. And that has a lot of bonus tiles or good land so that you can basically get the low corruption in the best city possible. That typically is what goes through my mind when I'm choosing a Forbidden Palace spot. But like I said, in some extreme cases like this, or if you've seen my England Demigod game, the Barren Rock Island map, in that one, the Forbidden Palace location, the effect it had on cities around the Forbidden Palace city was actually relevant in that save file. In most save files, the effect on surrounding cities in terms of distance corruption is pretty much irrelevant because any city that's far enough away will just have such cripplingly bad rank corruption instead. Number 5 is Espionage Flags. So if you get caught doing espionage, you get a flag with that civ. If you try to plant a spy on the same turn while you have that flag, the spy mission will fail. Every turn, there's a 1/3 of chance of that spy flag disappearing. That's it. That's every detail related to how this mechanic works. It's like 3 sentences, but you need to say the sentences right, and then in the middle of a multiplayer game, I'm still finding myself having to explain the implications of this. How long till I can try again? Well, depends how desperate you are for the mission. The flag is likely gone after 1 or 2 turns. It could be gone after 1 turn. In theory, it could be gone, or it could never be gone. It could just last the rest of the game. So, you make the call, man. That's how it is. Number 6 is War Weariness. This one is super important. Essentially, you have this invisible War Weariness score with each other civ on the map. These numbers, 1 per civ, are transferred into an effectual War Weariness score. These are divided into tiers. I'll show this information on screen. In Republic or Feudalism, Tier 1 makes 25% of your citizens unhappy. Tier 2 gives you 50%, so it scales based on how many citizens are in your cities. A bunch of things will increase your War Weariness score. Absolutely the biggest is losing a city, militarily, not to a culture flip. You also rack up points when you lose units or when your units are attacked, even if you win when your units are attacked. So the implications of this is that the War Weariness system punishes you for losing wars or for being sloppies with the wars that you win. And it causes no issue if you're fighting winning wars in a way that you'd probably want to anyway, even without the War Weariness, but it just further skews that set of incentives. Because if you don't lose cities, you should probably avoid that anyway. And if you don't let the enemy attack your units and you bombard the enemy down to 1 HP so that you never lose your attackers, then the War Weariness score doesn't really accumulate. And if you do let those things happen, it will accumulate and it will be very painful. These happiness penalties are severe and can completely shut down your economy. So if you rack up a lot of War Weariness score, you want to let it tick down. You can do this by not having units in enemy land and them not having units in yours. This works even at war, but it's quite slow. The faster way is to make peace. Be careful though, peace will make the War Weariness score dormant. It won't cause any unhappiness, but it's still there. You need to wait for it to tick down before you go back to war. You can't just immediately declare war after making peace, because your War Weariness score is still there. It's just not having any effect while you're at peace with that civ. It goes down by 5% each turn, plus the units and land thing, which is like 1 unit per turn. One point per turn. Universal suffrage cuts War Weariness by a single unhappy face in each city. Yes, you were hearing that correctly. The goggles, they do nothing. There's also war happiness. The TLDR there is that if the AI declared wars on you and weren't provoked by nukes or a failed spy mission, you get a 25% happiness boost, which is kind of random, and it's not a mechanic the game advertises a lot. But yes, you get happiness when they declare war on you. These bonuses actually do stack up to 100% if many civs declare war on you. Implication, of course, is that if you can bait a declaration of war, it's good. Even if it's not a war you were looking to fight, if it's not a war that causes you any inconvenience, you might as well try to get them to declare war on you for the happiness alone. As long as the enemy doesn't do things that drive up the War Weariness count, you get a big happiness bonus for free. Okay, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if there's any, if we're going to have like a comment section where I clarify any misunderstanding or you guys ask questions about this stuff, it might as well be here. So please, if you have any questions on the topics I mentioned in this video, ask me in the comment section of this video. And yeah, let me know what you guys want me to do next. See you guys next time.